Good morning, ladies, or good afternoon if you're in the land of Israel, and welcome to this week's installment of Torah with a Takeaway. There's a lot, this parsha is chock full of ideas. So I felt like I wanted to take up more than one. I couldn't decide. So I decided to give you a little spotlight on a few subjects within the parsha. We're going to take a few episodes up to discuss, get some great knowledge, deeper knowledge than we had as children. But there's a lot of things we're not going to mention today. For example, we're not going to mention the Ruvain switching the beds of his father's bed into his mother's room after Rachel passes away. We'll learn about Rachel passing away. And then there's many, many other things that aren't even, I'm not going to even go into. But what I am going to go into are the four struggles of Yaakov. Four of his struggles are in this week's Parsha. First one with the angel. He's fighting with the angel. I think we need to see that on a more of an adult level. Second thing is Yaakov meeting up with Esav, which Rav Yanai says in the Mishnah is instructive how we're supposed to handle ourselves in exile. He used to read, anytime he had to deal with the Roman government, he would read Parshas Vayishlach, because this is teaching us how to deal with the non-Jewish world. And the third thing is we're going to mention, the three struggles of Yaakov we're mentioning. The third struggle we're going to mention this week is the struggle of Dinah, the whole episode of Dinah and her brothers and all that goes along with it. So that's what we're going to take up today. And let's first start with some questions, and we'll get into some amazing answers and life-changing ideas. First of all, let's talk about the episode with the angel, the Malach. Do you ever consider, why was Yaakov the one of our forefathers that fought with an angel? If it's going to be something that's going to have great meaning, spiritual meaning for all the descendants, why particularly was Yaakov chosen out of all our forefathers to have this fight with struggle with the angel? And then secondly, we don't have to write these all down. There's a lot of questions because we're going to do many on these mini episodes. We're going to ask several questions and hopefully get some great lessons. And then Yaakov wins this struggle with the Malach, but he ends up limping. And it's interesting, like if you hear a recording of somebody winning, usually you don't describe, well, he's got this, he still has this wrong and that wrong. Usually win or lose, why do we have to know that he's limping? Why is that important? And how is that a victory if he was hurt? And then he asked the Malach at the end. The Malach says, "Let me go, because the Shachar is coming, the dawn is coming." And Yaakov says, "Please tell me your name. Give me a bracha." And he says, "Your name is not going to be Yaakov. It's going to be Yisrael." What does that mean? Also, he says, "Tell me your name." And the Malach says, "I'm not going to tell you my name. What do you need to know my name for?" Well, what's that business about? What are we supposed to learn from that episode? Second episode, when we talk about the episode, we said Rav Yanai says everyone learning. When Esav comes with 400 men, we all know as children we're supposed to prepare ourselves for war, and give a gift and pray. Those are the three ways a Jew prepares himself to meet, a non-Jewish adversary. And it usually works. All those three methods works. And bribing, unfortunately, has been a way that people live throughout the Middle Ages. That's how Jews continued going on. But on top of all of it, in this parsha, Yaakov bows not once, but 7 times to Esav. 7 times. Why did he bow so many times to Esav? What are we supposed to learn from that? And not only that, there's more. We find also the Zohar says that he bowed, the Shekhinah was there. Since when has Esav been synonymous with the Shekhinah? Now, I know some people like to compare Donald Trump to Mashiach, but we're not. He is maybe for the non-Jewish world. He's been a type of redeemer, but he's definitely not Mashiach, and definitely Esav is not the Shekhinah. So why does the Zohar? What's the significance there that the Zohar is comparing Yaakov to the Shekhinah, as Esav to the Shekhinah rather? The third struggle, we find that Dinah says, "Vatetze Dinah," she went out. That seems to be the harbinger of all her problems because she went out. Now, Dinah can't be such a bad character because people still name their Jewish daughters after her. So obviously she was a righteous woman. In fact, her daughter got converted. Well, no, her daughter got taken and by the Potiphar's family. And eventually her daughter Asnas is the one that married Yosef. Both Yosef and Dinah did not have twins. All the other tribes were born with a twin, but Yosef and Dinah did not have twins. And then Yosef ended up marrying Dinah's daughter, who was from the house of Potiphar. So the fact that the wife of Potiphar kept thinking Yosef belonged with her was true to a certain extent. There was some prophecy there, but it was not supposed to be her. But in any case, we find out that the whole way this whole thing occurred was this man Hamor finds her, and he grabs her, he takes her, he forces her, and then afterwards he starts appeasing her, and she actually wants to stay there, and he tells Yaakov, let me be her husband, we'll give you all kinds of things, we'll give you something. He starts negotiating with Shimon and Levi, and Shimon and Levi say, well, the only way you can get our sisters if you all agree to have a bris milah. They had a bris milah, and on the third day, when everybody's in pain, they go out and they mutilate that. They go out and kill the entire city of Shem. And then Yaakov has a whole complaint against his sons. What did you do to me? Why did you do this to embarrass me? And they said, should our sister be like a harlot? That was the answer. And what is this? What do we learn from this whole episode? Why did they do this? What did Yaakov not want? And then furthermore, Yaakov gives them all these blessings afterwards. He gives them, well, so to speak, a blessing in Vayechi, before Yaakov passes away on his deathbed. He gets up and he says, Shimon and Levi are too zealous, and they could with their anger they killed people. And he said, Achalkem b'Yaakov v'afitzem b'Yisrael. I will split them up and separate them in the Jewish people. Rashi says, what does that mean? Levium will not have a settlement in Israel. They won't be one of the tribes to inherit. Why? Because they won't inherit specific big sections of land, but they'll have cities within each tribe, because they're busy with the Beis Hamikdash and serving God. So they're not going to have, they can't agriculturally develop their whole area. Now that's, I think, a very good thing. If you become Levium, for being so zealous, is it so terrible that they became Levium? And Shimon became the Melamdim. They became the teachers and the scribes of the Jewish people. What's so terrible what they did? Okay, so let's get into some of these answers to take each episode one by one, and let's learn some important lessons. Okay, let's first take the struggle with the angel. Rav Galinsky Zatzal brings down from the Chafetz Chaim, who says that the reason why Yaakov was the one that was chosen of all our forefathers to fight with the angel is that the angel, we'll see, the angel of Esav, this represents the Yetzer Hara, really, or could be some other people too. According to the Medrash, the Malach could have been the Satan. Another Medrash says that Michael, that the angel Michael, who was a patron of the Jewish people, could have been him. The Rashbam says that Yaakov was running away from Esav, and Michal stopped him and told him that he has to remain. And so this was like an in-between view, kind of. And the Rav Galinsky brings down from the Chafetz Chaim saying that we talk about it's supposed to be Satan. It's supposed to be the Yetzer Hara. It's supposed to be something that you're supposed to stay back and have trials and tribulations. Chafetz Chaim says only are people who keep the Torah given this test. Avram predominantly was kindness. Yitzchak was predominantly fear of heaven, or self-control. Both those traits are good, but the Yetzer Hara does not bother with them as much as it bothers with keeping the Torah. That's when we have a Yetzer Hara that gives us the biggest problem. That's how it goes. So let's understand the Torah's view of a struggle. And Yaakov was the one chosen. And what was his struggle? Mesil Shisharim tells us that life is a struggle, milchama panim va'achor. There is a war going on in our life, front and back, at all times. We have a Yetzer Hara. That's how it works. And Rav Dessler tells us that the word ra, evil, is the same letters as the word er. Er means awakened. That evil either awakens us to the fact that life is temporary and this is not the place to sit back and put your feet up, it can also awaken us to the fact that we have work to do. We're not here to just take it easy in this world. The struggles give us vitality, feeling that we have a reason for living. And even if there's nothing else to live for, we're here to overcome struggles. We have the Gemara tells us that when they fought, him with the angel, there's the dust that they kicked up reached the Kisei HaKavod, reached heaven. You know, we find that at the end, the Malach wanted to be set free, and Yaakov he saw, but Yaakov didn't let him go. Yaakov saw value in the struggle. Rabbi Victor Miller tells us an interesting point about this whole struggle. He says, this was not just a plain little fight, you know, this was a struggle where the hours and hours it went on. Every limb in his body he was using. They said he tried to wound him in the neck, and then Yaakov made his muscles very stiff, so he couldn't wound him. He tried him in the arm. He tried him everywhere. The leg, the thigh, where he got him referred to, some of his descendants wouldn't be so pure, and that's where he would have some failings. But the point of the struggle for hours and hours, usually when you find Avram being thrown into the fiery furnace, that was a momentary struggle. Or Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were given a struggle. Are you going to go believe in idols? Or you're going to go into the furnace. Yaakov's struggle was the entire night long, the whole night. And this is something that it's supposed to be very indicative Kabbalistically for his descendants. When they're struggling, it's like that struggle was so important. We have to know three things about the struggle. How do we know what the Yetzer Hara is? From Cain. The way Victor Miller says that Hashem spoke to Cain, he gave him advice about the Yetzer Hara. He said, first of all, Lefesa chatas rovetz, that you should know that the Yetzer Hara is always going to be crouching by your doorstep, meaning he's in wait. We wake up, famous story about the Chavetz Chaim, that one time the Chavetz Chaim was getting older and he said, I can sleep a little longer. I'm so tired. I need to sleep. I'm exhausted. And then he all of a sudden realizes the Yetzer Hara is older than I am. He's been around since beginning of time, and he's up already. And he's the one telling me not to get out of bed. I'm not saying women our age should not sleep in a little bit longer, but we have to keep in mind, I don't know about you, but in Israel, there's a big thing we have to keep in mind that we could be missing out if we get up too late, because there's chatzos, there's times for davening shachris, there's times mincha, ma'ariv. Everyone has to know about their health and everything, but at the same time, we have to be aware days are very short now. If you want to get in your chakras and your mincha, it's better to start off early and end off early than to get up late and then off late. You don't get anything done in the night. But the Yetzer Hara is crouching. Every move we make, we have that Yetzer Hara waiting out for us. It's unbelievable, And then the second thing Cain was told about the Yetzer Hara, ve'elav teshukaso. And he's going to always want you. He wants you. He loves you. He acts like your biggest friend, but he's actually called by the Chovos HaLevavos Hasonei HaGadol. The biggest enemy you have is not people that are against you. It's your Yetzer Hara, who is testing you through these means at all times, always trying to trip you up. Victor Miller says, we think we're here to raise a family, to do mitzvahs. We're here to win the war. There is a war, a constant struggle. And at the end it says, Va'atatim shalbo, when Cain is given his little speech about the Yetzer Hara, Hashem tells him, ultimately, you can rule over him. And when the sun comes up, when Yaakov had the sun come up, meaning when the afterworld, or it could be the Messianic age, then all of a sudden the struggle ended. That struggle wasn't there anymore. It was over. So that's really the nature of the Yetzer Hara. One of Yaakov's struggles was to teach us how to understand that nature of that struggle that we always have with our evil inclination. We find that there's a halacha that comes out of this thing, and that's the prohibition for the Jews to eat the sciatic nerve. Now, in Canada, I don't know the story in Israel yet. Maybe somebody from Israel can tell me. But I know in Canada and in America, they don't sell the hindquarters of the animal at all, even though apparently the hindquarters are the choicer cuts of meat. But they don't even bother with them because they need something called trabering. They need somebody that is willing to remove the veins and and all the things there, the sinews, the sciatic nerve, particularly. Apparently, nerves grow very long, and it's painstaking, and you have to take it all out. So for this reason, they just don't bother with it. They feel like, rather than mess up, they decide that it's better to just use the top cuts of meat, and thereby you won't get involved with that whole test of dealing with trabering. I believe in Europe they still have trabering where there is somebody that's removing the sciatic nerve. Now, what's the meaning of you can't eat the gid hanashe? So there's two different explanations that I'll share with you, and they're both very important for us to think about when we deal with adversity. So far we've learned that there are several messages. One is he's always there waiting for us. It's a struggle that's continual. You can't get out of it. And if you want to get out of it, then you're missing out on what you're here in the world to do. They're always going to have some kind of backlash or some kind of something, something bothering you. Very rare are moments of rest, and the rest is only to give us more strength to go back in the ring for the next round. But we're here for struggles. That's what we're here for. So when we learn about the gid hanashe, we can't eat, nobody is allowed to eat the sciatic nerve at all. It's a Torah prohibition. We don't understand it, but there is reasons to it. According to Rav Zev Leff, he explains that eating from the gid hanashe, eating from the first of all, the gid hanashe itself tastes like wood. I mean, that's what it supposedly tastes like. It's not a delicacy. We hear filet mignon is supposed to be a delicacy, but no one is saying how great the gid hanashe is. You find nobody advertising. He says that's how we're supposed to view adversity. Okay, Yaakov is limping. Okay, it seems like he was the one that lost, that even though he did win, but he had some kind of adversity while he was in his struggle. And that adversity we're supposed to view as being nothing, inconsequential. We can't let it get to us. We have to consider it like nothing. And that's why they took out the part we're not allowed to eat. So what? We're not missing anything. Maybe we're missing, I'm not getting the hindquarters of the animal, but we're not missing anything, not eating the gid hanashe. That's just something to show us that we should understand adversity is part of life. And this is something we should just say, look, this is it. We have to go through it. We shouldn't make it into a bigger deal than it already is. It already probably is a big deal. Usually people have very big tests in life, but we should try for ourselves to minimize it. That's how we can cope with it better. According to Rav Victor Miller, he says the reason we can't eat the gid hanashe gives another explanation, and I think they're both important. That's why I'm mentioning it. His explanation was that the gid hanashe, the reason we can't eat it is because the one place where Yaakov got weak for a moment, we are not supposed to go there. We should not let ourselves get weak. It's every time we refrain from eating the gid hanashe, whenever we'll have a piece of meat on our plate for whatever yontif, we should remember, I'm not eating the gid hanashe because A, like we said before from Rabbi Leff, it's inconsequential. I'm not going to let adversity get to me. And B, Rav Victor Miller, adversity is something that I'm not going to let myself be weak. I don't want to be weak. I am going to stand up and I'm going to keep being in the race and I'm going to still be fighting. And Yaakov fell. Yaakov fell. They say about Rav Nachman Breslov, the reason why he was so popular, he said he fell 100 times and then he picked himself up. We have to realize that everyone falls. That's Sheva Yipol Tzadik V'Kam. A person can fall. That doesn't mean you're not a tzaddik anymore. That means you temporarily fell, and now you could do tshuva and make it as if you never fell. We are here to keep fighting the fight and winning the struggle, and that's what we're here for. Now, when Yaakov wanted to, then the Amal said, let me go because I want to sing Shira. Shira means that he achieved his mission. His mission was he wants us to win. The Yetzer Hara wants us to win the war. He's setting, we're hurdle jumping, and we're just here to win. And the reason we don't give him a name is because Yetzer Hara takes on different names. He's never one thing. As a nation, we've been tested with communism, socialism, Hellenism, you name it, converting to Spanish, Catholicism, all the different challenges every generation brings. and you know, and at the same time, as a person, the Yetzer Hara is never the same. One night it's this, another night it's that. It's always different things, and that's why it has no name. But the Yetzer Hara also, I mean, the Yetzer Hara, the Ar Yahel, the Review de Chaspans, Zatzal tells us that really evil is only a dimion. It's only it's really, it's a facade. It's not really an existing thing. It's a sheker ein la raglayim. That falsehood does not have feet to stand on. Nothing in this world is really, it looks like, oh, at this moment, this is it. If I don't have this, I'm a mess. But at the end, we know life is temporary and nothing lasts forever. And all the things that we're upset about one year, the next year could be something that's nothing to us. So we have to regard things as nothing, and we can overcome them. And we have to also tell ourselves we cannot get weak. We have to keep going. One way that Yaakov rose above adversity, it says, Vayivasser Yaakov levado. Yaakov went alone. Okay, he went alone to get these jugs because it teaches us, that's another thing in the parsha that we didn't go into today. We've done that before, about you know, how important little objects have to be to you. That's this week's parsha. But Beniskav Hashem levado, it says Hashem dwelt alone, and Vayivasser Yaakov levado, and Yaakov went alone. Being alone means you're not going to let the vicissitudes of life influence you. You're not going to let them get to you. You're not going to let them win over you. You're not going to let them, you're in for the fight and you're going to win. And that's how we're supposed to emulate Hashem, who is above physicality, doesn't let it get to him. And we can be the same. We can do the same. And we don't have to let that kind of thing get to us as well. Now he's called Yisrael, ki sarisa im anashim batuchal. You fought with men, Velokim v'anashim, I'm sorry, Vatucha. You fought with God and man. How did you fight with man? You didn't fight with man yet. The idea is, though, the Brisker Rav once said that the main thing is if you win over in Shemayim, then you automatically win over in Aretz. We are here to fight ourselves, and if we fight ourselves, then we'll win over things in our life as well. Now, why was Yaakov wounded in the thigh? We're told by the Tanhuma that angels, malachim, do not have a hip joint, so they can't sit. It means an angel, a malach, besides having wings and all the other things that they have, a hip joint means that they're always ready for action. They never become depressed. They never let themselves get overwhelmed. I'm saying we are not angels. We are humans. That's why Yaakov was her. That's why he did fail, but he came back. So that's what it's showing us, that we are particularly weak in the fact that we give up too often. You know, I read recently, I was rereading this book about Lieutenant Birnbaum. You've heard of him, the famous soldier who redeemed a lot of people in the DP camps. He was an American soldier after World War II. And he heard the Kloisenberger Rebbe's drasha to people on the first Yom Kippur when they came out of the camps. So he was reviewing with them. He said this was on Yom Kippur itself, in between the davening. He got up and he says, we're going to say vidui. We're going to confess for our sins. So we're going to say gazalnu, we stole. What did we steal? What did we have to steal? He said we didn't have anything with illicit relationships because nobody had any strength. You know, we didn't have any, you know, what did we do? We didn't do any of the prohibitions. But there was one thing he said we could have worked on. We should have had more emunah b'tachon. You know, so that, I mean, that for their level, we're not here to judge them in any way, but I'm just saying that, you know, this is, we are supposed to not give in to adversity. That's what we have to work on, and not let things get us down, and just to keep going. Okay. The fact that he was later healed, Yaakov, is a hint to Mashiach that, you know, eventually will come. Okay, now let's talk about the next struggle in this week's parsha, and that's the struggle with Esav. Rav Dessler tells us, why is it that Yaakov bowed down 7 times, no less, to Esav in this week's parsha? And it's called the Shechina. The Zohar calls it bowing down to the Shechina. We learn from this that our mission as Jews, as long as we're in exile, is we have to give in to them in this world. Now, giving in, and this is a lesson about giving in altogether, giving in to spouses, giving into children, giving into parents. People think that when you don't have the last word, you've lost. You're, nah. But I don't know if you remember, I heard from Rabbi Pesach Krohn, he should be gesund und stark, shavua shalema. Or Pesach Krohn once said the three most important words is to say, you were right. Three most important words in a marriage is you were right or I was wrong. You can pick which one you want. And because it doesn't matter who's right. Does it really? It matters to Hashem at the 120, whether you're right or wrong, because that's going to be, there's going to be, things that we're going to have to pay for. But right now, does it matter who's wrong and right? And especially with the non-Jewish world, Esav is like the sun, Yaakov is like the moon. In this world, Esav rules. Esav's got to be the one to be right. And we have to and if we have to protest and do things, we have to do things within the parameters of being respectful. And that's the Jewish way of giving in to Esav. They had to bribe Esav in the past, in different ways. That, even if and the mashal of Dessler gives, he says, you have two children, you have like a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. You tell the 6-year-old, share with your brother. He's a little kid. He's going to want it for 2 minutes. He's going to go to bed 2 hours before you. What difference does it make? And that's how we should view sometimes. So there could be difficult people. We have to give in to them and we have to say, who cares? Give in. We really gain. We really gain in the end because, you're the one that gave in. That shows you're a bigger person if you could give in than the person that can't give in. There's a story about a man that I saw this in a book, Touched by a Story, number 4. There was a man who was a Melamed in one of the ghettos in Europe of Aaron Yosef Friedman. So that's how he was, and he lived even after the war. He survived the war. He was teaching a class of little boys about Paro, and all of a sudden into the cheder burst a bunch of Gestapo people, and they were threatening. They took him away and everything, and they were beating him up. He was a cripple, this man. And he said to them, boys, you see, we survived Paro. Never forget, you're here to learn Torah no matter what. That was his parting words to them. How we're not supposed to, we're not supposed to let adversity bother us, even though we have to give in at times. But we have to know that, not to look at it like it's anything worthwhile, that we should have to stand up for ourselves. Of course you stand up if there's a court case or if there's somebody doing something against you and they're wrong, but we have to with respect, and we have to feel that we have a superiority, a superior morality, that we shouldn't have to go and get on the floor like they're getting on the floor. Okay, third struggle in this week's Parsha is that of Dinah. This is not easy. Now, she was taken by Hamor, and Shimon and Levi, they saw what was going on with their sister. They can't take it anymore. It says, Kinavala asab Yisrael lishkav bas Yaakov v'chein lo ye'aseh. They say it was a very big travesty, an abomination to do this, to take the daughter of Yaakov, and it's not done. Most of them, a portion that I read at least, said when it says it's not done means they had a higher morality in those days. Later, the Canaanites became extremely immoral, but then it wasn't done. You take somebody that's a daughter of a prominent person and just grab her and have her like that. But it was an Nevala Asab Yisrael. It was something that was an abomination. So Hamor says, I want your daughter, give her to me as a wife, and we'll marry each other and everything. And they said, but they decided to do this trick. This trick was they told everybody to do a bris milah, and then the third day when they're all in pain, they went and killed them, and Yaakov was very upset. Now, Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky said there was an old Russian tale that went around, and he felt that it should be repeated. There was once a guy that was confronted by a thief, and the guy says, give me your money or I'm going to kill you. And the guy says, listen, I have a wife. If I give you all my money and I come home to my wife without a penny or without a ruble, I guess she's going to come to me and she's going to say, where's the money? Why, you use it for yourself and you didn't give your poor children? He says, do me a favor. You have a gun, I see. Just shoot a hole in my hat. One hole in my hat, and show her that, that way I'll take home. I'll say, see, the guy was trying to shoot me. I had to give him all my money. The guy says, sure. Shoots a hole in the hat. Then he's got his proof to his wife. And then he says, okay, give me the money. And the man says, wait a minute, I'm thinking it over. I want my wife to think there was a big struggle. Can you shoot like the back of the hat a little bit? Maybe I'll give you my jacket, a coat. Can you put a hole in the coat? Make more holes. I really need it. So the man says, okay, all right, but I want the money. So he makes all these holes. And the man says, a few more. And then he says, I have no more bullets. So the man says, oh, if you have no more bullets, I'm running away. I'm not giving you my money. So he ran away. Anyways, that's really what Shimon and Levi were trying to do. They really wanted, well, Yaakov thought at first, he didn't say a word, by the way. Yaakov kept silent. He did not say a word at first when this whole thing was going on. When they wanted to take Dinah, Yaakov didn't answer, and the brothers answered for him. The reason, says Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, why Yaakov did not want to get involved, Yaakov's trait was emes, truth. Now, although he did play with truth when he had got the brachos, he had to, because his main trait was truth, titain emes Yaakov. And his trait was being challenged. That was his test in life, always challenged in truth. How truthful are you going to be? But his mother, through prophecy, and it was private, in a private setting, his mother told him he has to pretend he's Esav for the sake of overcoming his nature, and that way he'll deserve the blessings. Now, we find that here it was public. If Yaakov would have deceived them, Yaakov remained silent. He felt something has to be done. He definitely did, but he couldn't employ any deceitful means because he felt it's going to be a Chil Hashem. He was known in the world as the man of truth, and it wouldn't be coming from him. Just like they have a Havdil, but they say with Trump, they ask him, are you going to take revenge? And he says, oh no, but he says, but everyone else will handle it. So, anyways, but, that's, so that was, his method. That's why he didn't say a word. However, he thought when they asked them to do bris milah, that when they're all hurt, he's going to just take Dinah and not kill everybody. He was upset that they killed the entire city. They killed all the males of Shechem. Now, did he have a right to do so is the question. It's not so simple. This is what he thought. Now, let's just say something here, what he did wrong. Okay, what they did wrong, rather. Okay, according to the Rambam, a ben Noach, if a person's a Noachide deserves the death penalty if he breaks any one of the Noachide laws, any one of the 7 negative Noachide laws. And Hamor was guilty of kidnapping. So for this reason, they were deserving of death. Everyone agrees that. Even Yaakov would have agreed with that. The question is, should all the people of the town be punished as well? So according to the Rambam, the people didn't set up a court. So the fact they didn't set up a court to deal with things like this means that they were like accomplices to this act. So they all deserve to be killed too. So what they did was right. What they didn't do, maybe should have consulted with Yaakov. Yaakov was afraid, really, according to most of the Meforshim, he was afraid that they're endangering all the Jewish people, that they got up, that Shimon and Levi single-handedly killed the entire city out, all the men. The Ramban says courts are for monetary matters. He doesn't agree totally with the Rambam, but he said they had terrible deeds, did idolatry, and maybe I suggest, I saw this in some of them, Sfarim, that the fact that they had no courts means that they didn't care about the laws either. So in a way, they are accomplice, Now, the whole idea of what Shimon and Levi did, even though it seems like it was horrible that they murdered all these people, they were very zealous. They said, "Hakazona nase as achosenu." Should our sister be like a harlot? They were the only one of the 2 of the 12 tribes that did anything to defend their sister. She's grabbed by somebody. Nobody makes a move. And all of a sudden, these 2 people come in and they move. And for this reason, they were given the most important positions in the Jewish people. The teachers of the Jewish people and the Kohanim and the Levium are all from Shimon and Levi. Now, and Shimon and Levi were the ones that said, Mila Shem Elai, when it was Matan Torah. I mean, when there was the Cheta Egel, rather, they got up and they were, going to avenge anyone that went against, Hashem and making an Egel. They had a lot of zealousness, and zealousness is a very good trait. We believe you're supposed to have midos. You're supposed to have good traits. It's a very important thing for a Jew to have. However, traits have to be tempered. The word midah means measurement. Like you're supposed to have some anger. Some, very little, but some. And it's got to be used for good reasons. They say Kohanim, by the way, have big tempers. Temper means you really care. It really means something to you. It goes to your bones. But Rav Yaakov brings examples. There are two birds, for example, used for sacrifices. One is a tor. A tor is a type of dove, pigeon. But a tor is a very faithful bird. It remains faithful forever to its spouse. And that tor is brought as a sacrifice for certain sins. We find also something called a ben Yonah. Now, a ben Yonah is another type of dove, but this particular one is a very vengeful bird. Like they keep kicking each other out of the nest. They get into fights all the time. But apparently, if it's young, you're supposed to take a certain age. I didn't get a chance to look this up again this time. But if it's a certain age or under a certain age, it's still kosher for the korban. If it's beyond that certain age, it's not. The reason is, in its pure form, zealousness is fine. It shows you care. It's very important, but it has to be tempered properly with Torah, and it can't be mixed in with other agendas, because then it gets really bad, and then you're in trouble. We find that Levi, the tribe of Levi, lived in the place of, in Mitzrayim, they lived in Goshen. Goshen was an area that was never enslaved because Yosef made a provision when he was viceroy to the king. He made a provision that the priestly caste does not have to be ever enslaved, and they should have their own private place to live. They should live separate from the Egyptians. It was like Lakewood, New Jersey. And well, maybe not exactly. Maybe there's still some non-Jews in Lakewood, New Jersey, but not many. Any case, but maybe more like Tush, something like that, or what do we say, Square, maybe more like Square. Anyways, so they find that these, that they were not influenced by the Gentiles or by the Egyptians in any way, whereas Shimon later did not have this Goshen experience. And Shimon was the one later. They had Zimri and this whole thing, and they were all zealous about showing to to the Jewish people that they were unafraid. They didn't have to be like everybody else. So they succumbed sometimes to their zealousness, and they abused it and used it in a different way. But zealousness, any trait, can be good if we use it and temper it for the right reasons. And we're always having the Yetzer Hara crouching, waiting for us. We're supposed to make it nothing. We're supposed to realize that it's always focusing on us. Anything, even Rav Victor Miller mentions, anything going on in history, it's all for the Jews. Like we think, we have to hear the news at all times. So Hashem makes the news cycle change all the time. We said, oh, I just wanted to hear about the election. And then all of a sudden the next thing comes up that's really exciting. And there our time goes. We're wasting time getting involved with things when we're really in the world for another purpose. V'atatim shalbo, and we can rule over it. We can win. Yaakov showed us for generations that we have the ability, even though we may get maimed a little bit, that we could fight the Yetzer Hara. And Dina, forgot to mention this, I'm sticking it in right now. Dina, it says, Vatetse Dina, she went out. Going out, we have to be careful not to put yourself out there. Now, she only went out to see Benos Haaretz. She went to see the daughters. There was some kind of play or singing going on. She went out to the latest concert, But for her, for some reason, there was, he saw her there. And she didn't do anything wrong, but we should pause to think when we, put ourselves out, are we dressed a little too flashy, too tight? What are we wearing? Are we putting ourselves out there and making it hard for other people? Also, what's our responsibility? Learn from Shimon and Levi, because really their curse from Yaakov that I'm separating them, the Jewish people, was really for the good. We need more Levis all over the world. We need the Hashmonaim got up and they were zealous, and they were from the tribe of Levi. And we should learn from this that, this is what Olam Hazeh is. The test of the Yetzer Hara is inconsequential, but at the same time, that we can't be weak. We can't afford to be weak. We have to look at life as something, not to give in to all the things with this world and not to let it get to us. I'll just end up with a story, small story. One time the Chazon Ish, the famous Avram Yishai Karelitz, was walking along the streets of Bnei Brak with one of his students, and no, it wasn't Bnei Brak. It must have been when they were still in Lithuania. And a non-Jew accosted them and said, "Oh, you dirty Jew." And he was saying all these horrible things. And the other boy started to argue, and the Chazon Ish said nothing. The Chazon Ish says, "Why'd you have to say anything?" And he said, "Why'd you say nothing?" And he says, "Because it's not worth it to start up with them. It's just not worth it. You're just going to make more trouble than good. It's better to say nothing." He said, "Nothing. You don't have to answer back to these kind of things. You don't have to say." And unfortunately, people are having all kinds of challenges today with anti-Semitism in the world. Now, we have to report things to whoever we have to report them to, but we have to realize they're not in it for us. They have their ulterior motives, and we have to answer only to Hashem. One other little thing I'll just throw in for extra credit. It's just nothing to do with whatever I said, but I just saw this like 10 minutes before I gave the shir. Rabbi Fran said something very interesting. In this week's Parsha, it lists all the tribes of Edom, the one leader and another leader, Aluf, they're called. Of this section, Yitzhak gave a lot of land to Edom. He bequeathed him Har Seir. A lot of the world was given to Edom as a gift. And says Rabbi Frand, we find throughout the years, the Christian world has never been after us for land, but the Muslims with this little tiny parcel of land, they're fighting. They're always looking. They want it. They have to have this piece of land. What, they don't have enough? It's not. How are we bothering them? This little sliver of land that we have in the Middle East. But Rabbi Frand says, Yishmael, unlike Esav, was sent away with no property from Avram. Until this day, he resents it. That he was sent away from his home with nothing. He ran away from home, sent away with Hagar, and that was it. I mean, I guess for some reason Avram did not bequeath him anything, even though Yishmael is the one that did tshuva and Esav didn't, which is very interesting. But, and I guess he just suggests that maybe that's the reason why we have this thing in the Middle East today, is because of Esav having what he needs as far as the land, and Yishmael feeling that he was deprived of something. Okay, thank you all for listening, and thank you, Rivka Shavsa, for doing what you do, and Debbie Menzalewski for doing what you do. And I am now going to turn off the recording. Now, I don't remember how to do it. One second, I think. No. I don't know how to end the recording, so that is a problem. So that means I can't open it up to questions because I don't know how to end the recording. So you'll have to forgive me for this week. People can, if you want to send anything on the chat, I'll try to read it. But I thank you all for listening. And I can't open it up to things because I'm here to turn off the recording today, and I forgot how
check
to do
the bottom
so.
right-hand corner. Check. It says
What?
leave. The bottom right-hand corner is a word that says leave. Do you see that?
No.
Or on top, you see the word recording? On
Yes.
the right-hand side, recording?
Yes.
Okay, click on recording.